So I'm going to be talking about health insurance today, and three types of health insurance in particular. The first type is known as HMO, which is a health maintenance organization. An HMO is an organization that provides or arranges managed care for health insurance, self-funded healthcare benefit plans, individuals, and other entities in the United States. And it basically acts as a liaison with healthcare providers on a prepaid basis. So this stuff is pretty complicated, so I'm going to try and do my best to explain it as simply as possible. Okay, the second type is a POS plan, which is known as a point of service plan. And members of a POS plan do not make a choice about which system to use until the point of which the service is being used. So they don't make a choice necessarily until they have to go to a doctor to seek them out for a certain situation or circumstance. The POS is based on the Basic Managed Care Foundation, so it's basically lower medical costs in exchange for a more limited choice. So you might not have as many options in terms of who your doctors are in your network. And just to give you an example, a network is each healthcare provider has a certain number of and different kinds of doctors that you can go to, and it will be covered by your health insurance. So if you were to seek a different kind of doctor who might be better than a doctor in your network, that would be an out-of-network doctor. The POS health insurance does differ from other managed care plans. And lastly, the third kind is known as a PPO, a preferred provider organization, and a preferred provider option is a managed care organization of medical doctors, hospitals, and other healthcare providers. And basically, it acts as a third-party administrator to provide health care at reduced rates to the insurers or administrators' clients. Okay, so let's go into a little more detail now that you kind of understand what these three types of health insurance are. So an HMO in more detail began when the Health Maintenance Organization Act was passed in 1973, and this required employers with 25 or more employees to offer federally certified HMO options if the employer offered traditional healthcare options. An HMO covers care rendered by those doctors and other professionals who have agreed by contract to treat patients in accordance with HMO's guidelines and restrictions, and in exchange for a steady stream of customers. So HMOs cover emergency care regardless of the healthcare's provider contracted status. So that's good, because let's say if you have an emergency and you go to a hospital and it's not in your network, the HMO will still cover it. HMOs require members to select a primary care physician. So this primary care physician is now the gatekeeper to direct access to seek out other doctors like specialists such as a dermatologist, or if you have an elbow injury and you want to see a doctor that's specifically towards elbows, you have to go to your primary healthcare physician first. And the primary care physician has to sign a referral, and then you can go see the specialist once your primary care physician agrees that you need to see the specialist. And the primary care physician cannot refer you to see a specialist unless the HMO guidelines deem it absolutely necessary. So you could see where that maybe would kind of become an issue. With an HMO plan, you must get your care from doctors that are only included in the plan's network. A plan's network refers to doctors that are chosen by the healthcare provider. And if the patient decides to seek a doctor out of network, a much larger cost will appear. Okay, next, a POS point of service plan has some of the qualities of an HMO and a PPO plan, which I'll explain later. The benefit level of this plan can vary depending on whether you are in or out of the health insurance company's network of providers. So this whole in and out of network theme seems to be a common theme throughout most health insurance providers. A POS plan works by combining elements of both HMO and PPO plans. Like an HMO plan, you may be required to designate a primary care physician who once again will then make referrals to network specialists when needed. Depending upon the plan, services rendered by your primary care physician are typically not subject to a deductible, and preventative care benefits are usually included. Like a PPO plan, you may receive care from non-network providers, but with a greater out-of-pocket cost. You may also be responsible for co-payments, co-insurance, and an annual deductible. A POS plan may be right for some patients if they are willing to play by the rules and coordinate their care through a primary care physician. Okay, lastly, we have the PPO, Preferred Provider Organization, and it's a subscription-based medical care arrangement, and the membership allows a substantial discount below the regularly charged rates of the designated professionals partnered with the organization. Preferred provider organizations earn money by charging an access fee to the insurance company for the use of their network. Okay? Hopefully you're still with me. PPOs negotiate with providers to set fee schedules and handle disputes between different insurers and providers. So PPOs have a slightly larger premium than most options, but because of this, they offer patients more flexibility overall. So when using a PPO, you do not need a primary care physician, which is a good thing, and you do not need referrals to see other specialists or doctors in your network. So however you get this luxury now, you can see other doctors, you don't need a primary care physician, but they're going to charge you more for it. If you receive your care from a doctor in the preferred network, you will only be responsible for your annual deductible and a copayment for your visit, which usually is like $20 to $50. If you get health services from a doctor or a hospital that is not in the preferred network, you will end up paying a higher amount, and you will need to pay the doctor directly and file a claim with the PPO to get reimbursed. Okay, so let's just the difference between HMO and PPOs. So with an HMO, you must choose doctors, hospitals, and other providers in the HMO network. Okay, now with a PPO, you can choose doctors, hospital, and other providers from the PPO network or from out of the network. If you choose an out-of-network provider, you will most likely pay more. Do you need a primary care physician? Like we just covered, with an HMO, yes, you will need a primary care physician. With a PPO, you do not. How would you see a specialist if you had an HMO as opposed to a PPO? With an HMO, you'll need a referral from your primary care physician, and your primary care physician must also refer you to see a specialist who is in the HMO network. However, with a PPO, you do not need a referral to see a specialist. However, some specialists will only see patients referred to them by a primary care doctor, and some PPOs require that you get prior approval for certain expenses, such as MRIs. Do you have to file insurance claims? With an HMO, all of the providers in the HMO network are required to file a claim to get paid. You do not have to file a claim, and your provider may not charge you directly or send a bill, so you don't have to worry about it, basically. Now, with a PPO, if you get your health care from a network provider, you usually do not need to file a claim. However, if you go out of network for services, you may have to pay the provider in full and then file a claim with a PPO to get reimbursed. The money you receive from the PPO will most likely be only part of the bill. You're responsible for any part of the doctor's fee that the PPO does not pay. How would you go about paying for services in the network? With an HMO, the only charges you should incur for in-network services are co-payments for doctor's visits and other services such as procedures and prescriptions. With a PPO, in most PPO networks, you will only be responsible for the services in-network or out-of-network. And that would be like an annual deductible that you would have to pay. How do I pay for services out of the network? With an HMO, except for certain types of care that may not be available from a network provider, you are not covered for any out-of-network services. So the minute you go out of that network, you're screwed, essentially. With a PPO, if you choose to go outside of the PPO network for your care, you will need to pay the provider and then get reimbursed by the PPO. So you would have to pay, then file a claim, and then the PPO will pay you back. Most likely, you will have to pay an annual deductible and co-insurance. For example, if the out-of-network doctor charged you $200 for a visit, you are responsible for the full amount. If you have not met your deductible, If you have met the deductible, the PPO may pay 60% or $120, and you'll pay 40% or $80. So that's pretty much health insurance for you. You probably have some questions. Like I said, this is pretty dense and pretty complicated. Anyways, I hope you guys are having a great last class, and miss you. Bye.